Oh, this is delicious. This is absolutely beautiful. You need to hear what just happened, because I promise you, you're not going to believe it. But somewhere deep in your gut, in that place where truth lives whether you acknowledge it or not, you already know. You already felt the shift. You already sensed something changing in the atmosphere around you. They held a meeting about you? Yeah? A real meeting, not just casual gossip over drinks. Not just whispered conversations in corners. An actual coordinated gathering of people who decided you were enough of a problem, enough of a threat, enough of something to warrant a strategic discussion. Picture it. All those faces that smiled at you while planning your downfall. All those voices that praised you to your face and cursed you behind your back. All those people who shook your hand with one palm while sharpening knives with the other. They gathered in one space, united by one common purpose. You, destroying you, containing you, figuring out what the hell to do about you, because apparently you've become a situation that requires handling. And here's where it gets absolutely beautiful. Here's where their little plan collapsed like a house of cards in a hurricane. Half of them switched sides. Right there, in that room, surrounded by people who were supposed to be unified against you, half of them defected. Half of them looked around at the hatred, the jealousy, the coordinated campaign to bring you down, and they said no, not anymore. Count me out. I'm done being part of this. Do you understand what that means? Do you comprehend the magnitude of what just happened? Your enemies couldn't even maintain solidarity against you. Your opposition crumbled from within before they could even execute their plan. The very people who were supposed to be your downfall became your defense, not because you asked them to, not because you manipulated them, but because your truth was so undeniable, your character so evident, your essence so powerful that it converted enemies into witnesses. Let me paint you the picture of what happened in that room, because you deserve to see it. You deserve to understand exactly how your silent war was won without you even showing up. They started confident. Oh, they were so sure of themselves at the beginning. Look at all of us, they thought. Look how many people agree. Look how unified we are against this person. They fed off each other's hatred, validated each other's resentment, built each other up with stories about how terrible you are, how much you deserve what's coming, how justified they all are in wanting to see you fall. But then something shifted. Someone in that room, maybe the quietest one, maybe the one who'd been going along with the crowd without really believing it, they started thinking. They started remembering. They started recalling moments that contradicted the narrative being sold. Wait, they thought. That's not exactly how it happened. I was there. I saw what really went down. And what I saw doesn't match what's being said in this room right now. That's when the first crack appeared. That's when the foundation of their united front started crumbling. Because lies require unanimous agreement to survive, deception needs everyone playing along to maintain its power. And the moment one person in that room started questioning the official story, others started questioning too. You want to know what really broke them? It wasn't your defense. It wasn't your explanation. It wasn't anything you said or did. It was your absence. It was the fact that you weren't there to defend yourself, and yet somehow your truth was louder than their lies. Your character spoke when your mouth didn't. Your history testified when you couldn't. Someone in that room remembered how you helped them when no one was watching. Someone remembered how you showed up for them during their darkest moment. Someone remembered the real you, not the version being constructed in that meeting, but the actual human being they'd experienced. And that memory, that truth, It was stronger than the narrative they were trying to build. Half of them switched sides. Let that sink in. Half of the people who showed up ready to destroy you walked out ready to defend you. Not because they're saints, not because they're particularly loyal, but because truth has a weight that lies can't match. And when they were forced to really look at what they were participating in, when they had to actually commit to the coordinated destruction of another human being, their conscience woke up. You know what the funniest part is? The ones who stayed, the ones who doubled down on their hatred, they're more exposed now than ever. Because before this meeting, they could hide in the crowd, they could pretend their hatred was shared by everyone. They could tell themselves they were just going along with the general consensus. But now they've been revealed. Now the reasonable people have left the room. Now they're standing there with only the most bitter, the most jealous, the most committed to your destruction. And that's a mirror they can't escape. Let me tell you what's happening to those who switched sides right now. They're lying awake at night. Not with guilt over betraying the group, but with relief. Relief that they didn't become part of something ugly. Relief that they listened to that small voice inside that said this isn't right. Relief that when they look in the mirror tomorrow, they won't have to see someone who participated in the coordinated destruction of another person. They're remembering things now. All the moments they witnessed that contradicted the narrative. All the times they saw your kindness and chose to forget it. All the instances where you were genuine and they let others convince them it was manipulation. The scales are falling from their eyes, and what they're seeing is making them sick. Not sick of you, sick of themselves. Sick of how easily they were led. Sick of how quickly they joined a mob without questioning why. And here's the thing about people who switch sides. They don't just become neutral. They become witnesses. They become living proof that the case against you doesn't hold up under examination. They become walking testimonies that when forced to really look at the evidence, reasonable people conclude you're not the monster you've been painted as. Every time those bitter ones try to spread their poison now, there's someone who was in that room ready to say, actually, I was part of that, and I left because it wasn't true. Every time they try to recruit new people to their hatred, there's a defector ready to tell the real story. Every time they try to paint you as universally despised, there's proof that half the people who showed up to despise you ended up defending you instead. Your enemies just created your best character witnesses. How's that for irony? They gathered evidence against you, and half of it testified in your favor. But let's go deeper. Let's talk about what this reveals about you, without you even being present. The fact that your character could defend itself in a room full of people committed to destroying it, that tells you something. The fact that your truth was powerful enough to convert enemies into allies without you speaking a word, that tells you something. The fact that half of a hostile room walked out refusing to participate in your destruction, that tells you something about who you really are. You've been worried, haven't you? Worried about what they're saying. Worried about the narratives being constructed. Worried that somehow their lies would become the accepted truth. But look what happened when your lies were actually tested. Look what happened when people had to commit to them with their whole selves. Half of them couldn't do it. Half of them looked at the evidence and chose you over the mob. That's not luck. That's not coincidence. That's the result of how you've actually lived. That's the fruit of choices you made when no one was watching. That's the harvest of seeds you planted in people's hearts without expecting anything in return. Every time you chose integrity over convenience, every time you helped someone without advertising it, every time you were real when fake would have been easier, you were building a defense you didn't know you'd need. And now that defense is active, working on your behalf in rooms you're not even in. They thought they could control the narrative. They thought if they just got enough people agreeing, the truth wouldn't matter. They thought volume could defeat validity. But they forgot something crucial. They forgot that some people actually have consciences. They forgot that some people can only lie to themselves for so long. They forgot that truth has a way of surfacing, especially when people are forced to confront it directly. Now let's talk about what happens next, because this isn't over. The ones who stayed in that room, the committed haters, they're going to escalate. They have to, because now they've been exposed. Now their group has been decimated. Now they're standing in a half-empty room, surrounded only by people as bitter as themselves, and that's a mirror that shows them exactly what they've become. They're going to get louder. They're going to get more desperate. They're going to make bigger claims and wilder accusations because they're trying to compensate for losing half their army. But here's what you need to understand. Desperation is not strength. Volume is not validity. The fact that they're escalating is proof they're losing. People who are winning don't need to scream. People who have truth on their side don't need to manufacture evidence. People who are justified don't need to hold meetings to coordinate their story. You just need to keep being you. That's it. That's the entire strategy. Keep being the person whose character defends itself. Keep being the person whose truth converts enemies. Keep being the person who doesn't need to attend meetings to coordinate lies because your story is the same whether you're speaking or silent, whether you're present or absent, whether you're defending yourself or letting your life speak for itself. The ones who switched sides, they're going to reach out to you eventually. Some of them directly, some of them through mutual connections. And when they do, you're going to have a choice. You can reject them for ever being part of that room in the first place. You can hold their participation against them forever. Or you can recognize that they did something rare. They changed their mind when presented with evidence. They chose truth over tribe. They walked away from consensus to stand alone. That's not weakness. That's not fickleness. That's integrity. That takes more courage than staying in a room full of people who agree with you. That takes more strength than going along with the mob. Forgive them. Not for them, but for you. Because holding on to resentment toward people who ultimately chose your side is punishing allies for being late rather than rewarding them for arriving at all. But the others, the ones who stayed, the ones who doubled down, the ones who looked at half the room leaving and decided to hate harder, those you can release with no guilt. Those have shown you who they are with perfect clarity. Those have demonstrated that their opposition to you isn't based on misunderstanding that can be corrected. It's based on something in them that needs you to be a villain. And you can't fix that. You can't explain that away. You can only recognize it and protect yourself accordingly. Here's what I want you to carry with you from this moment forward. You don't need to defend yourself. Your life is your defense. You don't need to explain yourself. Your character is your explanation. You don't need to attend every meeting called to discuss your destruction. Your absence can be more powerful than your presence. Let them gather. Let them strategize. Let them coordinate their attacks. And let your truth quietly convert half of them before they can even execute their plan. This is your power. Not force, but authenticity. Not volume, but validity. Not manipulation, but magnetism. You're not fighting your enemies. You're outlasting them. You're not defeating their lies. You're letting truth do that work for you. You're not converting their allies. Your character is doing that without your permission. They held a meeting about you. Half of them switched sides. And you didn't even have to show up. That's not luck. That's not coincidence. That's the result of being so real, so consistent, so authentically yourself that even people who want to hate you can't maintain it when forced to actually examine why. So let them meet. Let them plan. Let them think they're building something powerful against you. Because every time they do, every time they force people to really look at who you are, they risk losing more soldiers to your side. They risk creating more witnesses to your character. They risk exposing themselves while trying to expose you. You've already won. Not because you fought, but because you didn't have to. Not because you convinced anyone, but because your truth convinced them for you. Not because you were present, but because your absence was louder than their lies. Half of them switched sides, and the other half just revealed themselves more clearly than ever before. Now you know exactly who you're dealing with. Now you know exactly who chose hatred over truth. Now you know exactly who would rather stay in a room full of bitterness than walk out into the light of honest evaluation. That's information, that's clarity. That's the gift your enemies just gave you by holding their little meeting. Thank them. Silently, privately, never to their faces. Thank them for gathering your opposition in one place so half of them could defect. Thank them for forcing the question so that reasonable people could answer it correctly. Thank them for exposing themselves so thoroughly that you never have to wonder again. They meant it for your harm. It became your victory, and you didn't even have to show up. You ever notice how some people only have power over you when you're paying attention? The moment you look away, they fade. That's not an accident. That's the system working exactly as designed. See? Their tactics don't work on force. They work on distraction. They need your reactions, your emotions, your time. They need you scattered, pulled in 10 directions, chasing noise instead of building something real. Because focus, real focus, breaks the entire illusion. They don't want you focused. A focused mind is dangerous. It doesn't react. It doesn't panic. It doesn't fall for bait. And that terrifies them. They'll throw everything at you to pull you off course. Drama, opinions, fake urgency, comparison, validation traps dressed up as opportunities. And most people fall for it. Not because they're weak, but because they were trained to respond. Trained to explain themselves. Trained to seek approval. Trained to believe that attention equals importance. But here's the truth. They don't want you to realize the moment you stop reacting, their tactics stop working. They can't control someone they can't distract. That's why they need you emotional. They need you arguing. They need you proving. They need you chasing things that don't matter. Because while you're busy reacting, they're pulling strings. But you're not here to be controlled. You're here to wake up. That's where I can say consumo Purana 3 formed. Focus isn't about productivity. It's about sovereignty. It's about deciding what deserves access to your mind and what doesn't. And when you truly lock in, something strange happens. People start acting differently around you. They'll say you've changed, that you're cold, that you're distant, that you're obsessed. What they really mean is this: Their tactics don't work on you anymore. They can't guilt you. They can't rush you. They can't pull you into chaos. They can't manipulate your emotions with noise. Because focus creates distance. And distance exposes intent. You start seeing patterns instead of reacting to moments. You start noticing who only shows up when they need something. Who thrives on drama? Who gets uncomfortable when you stop explaining yourself? And that's when the real pressure begins. They'll escalate. They always do. They always do. They'll test you with silence, with criticism, with fake concern, with sudden interest. Not because they care, but because they're losing control. Nothing scares people more than realizing they no longer matter in your decision-making process. A distracted mind is predictable. A focused mind is untouchable. That's why they try to keep you busy with nonsense. Endless debates, pointless comparisons. Temporary pleasures. They don't want you building momentum. Momentum creates independence. And independence destroys leverage. Think about it. Have you ever seen someone panic when you don't respond? When you don't explain? When you don't engage? That panic isn't anger. It's fear. What? Fear that their influence is gone. Because when you're truly focused, you don't need to win arguments. You don't need to be understood. You don't need to announce your moves. You just move. That's why silence is so powerful. Not passive silence. Intentional silence. Silence backed by discipline. Silence backed by progress. Silence backed by knowing exactly where you're going. Most people can't handle that kind of focus. It exposes them. It forces them to confront the gap between who they are and who they could have been. And instead of rising, they try to pull you back. They'll say, relax, slow down. Why are you taking life so seriously? Because your focus is a mirror, and they don't like what they see in it. But here's the price they never talk about. Focus is lonely. You will outgrow people without meaning to. Not because you hate them, not because you think you're better, but because you're moving with intention, and they're moving on impulse. Impulse. In their different speeds, different priorities. O for tiklu. Tikal ho for people. Different realities, and when that gap forms, their tactics lose all effect. They can't shame you into stopping. They can't distract you with noise. They can't tempt you with shortcuts. Because you're no longer chasing outcomes. You're committed to the process. And that's when control shifts. The real battle was never external. It was never them. It was your attention. Once you reclaim that, everything changes. You stop feeding nonsense. You stop reacting to bait. You stop giving energy to things that don't move you forward. And suddenly, they don't know how to deal with you because they need participation. They need engagement. Or they need your awareness focused on them. Without it, their tactics collapse. You become invisible to manipulation, immune to guilt, unreachable by chaos. That's real power. Not loud power. Power. Power, not flashy power. Quiet power. Power, the kind that doesn't need validation. The kind that doesn't announce itself. The kind that just keeps building while others are busy talking. And here's the part most people never understand. When you stop reacting, you don't become weak. You become unreachable. People mistake silence for submission until results show up. Results don't argue. Results don't explain. Results don't seek permission. They just exist. And that's when the tactics fully fail. Because now, they're reacting to you. Your discipline becomes intimidating. Your consistency becomes unsettling. Your lack of response becomes threatening. Not because you did anything to them, but because you stopped needing them. A person who doesn't need approval can't be controlled. That's why focus is the ultimate rebellion. It disconnects you from artificial urgency, from emotional manipulation, from borrowed priorities. It puts you back in command. But understand this clearly. They will try one last thing. They'll try to make you doubt yourself. They'll question your path. They'll minimize your progress. They'll suggest you're missing out. Because if they can't stop you externally, they'll try internally. That's the final tactic. And if you hold focus there, they lose completely. Because once your mind is disciplined, nothing else matters. You stop chasing. You stop proving. You stop explaining. You build. And while they're stuck recycling the same tactics, the same tricks, the same noise, you're moving forward in silence. By the time they realize you're gone, you'll already be too far ahead to hear them. That's the moment everything flips. They don't disappear because you defeated them. They disappear because they were never relevant to your mission in the first place. That's the truth. Most people never accept. Not everyone is meant to come with you. Not everyone deserves access to your attention. Not every voice deserves space in your head. Focus teaches you that. It teaches you detachment without bitterness, distance without hatred, silence without weakness. And when you reach that level, their tactics don't just fail, they become obvious. You see manipulation before it lands. You see distraction for what it is. You see noise as background static, and you don't fight it. You ignore it. That's what breaks them, because nothing frustrates manipulators more than irrelevance. So ask yourself this: are you ready to protect your focus like your life depends on it? Are you ready to stop reacting, stop explaining, stop feeding the noise? Are you ready to move without announcement, without validation, without permission? Because the moment you do, their tactics stop working. They lose leverage. They lose access. They lose control. And you gain something far more valuable: clarity, momentum, freedom. You won't need to prove anything. You won't need to say a word. Your focus will speak for you. And by the time they understand what happened, it won't matter. You'll already be gone, locked in, building, untouchable. And once you reach that state, something deeper happens. You stop needing motivation. You stop needing reminders. You stop needing someone to push you, because focus becomes automatic. Discipline replaces emotion. Routine replaces impulse. Purpose replaces distraction. And that's when they really lose you. See, most tactics are built on predictability. They rely on knowing how you'll react. They rely on patterns, habits, weak points. But when your mind becomes disciplined, when your focus sharpens, you break the pattern. You no longer react on cue. You no longer get pulled into urgency that isn't yours. You no longer respond just because someone expects you to. And that confuses people. They'll misread your silence as arrogance, your discipline as obsession, your consistency as threat. Because it forces them to confront something uncomfortable. That's what they were never competing with you. They were feeding off you. Your attention, your reactions, your energy. And now it's gone. That's when the tactics become louder. More obvious, more desperate. They'll try to rush you, pressure you. You create artificial deadlines, make everything feel urgent. Because urgency kills clarity. But focus slows you down in the right way. It forces you to ask, does this actually matter? But does this move me forward? Or is this just noise dressed up as importance? And once you start asking those questions, control shifts permanently. You stop living on other people's timelines. You stop chasing outcomes they defined. You stop measuring your progress with their metrics. You build your own rules. That's when the gap grows. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, day by day. Decision by decision. While they're busy reacting, you're stacking progress. While they're busy talking, you're sharpening skills. While they're busy watching others, you're becoming someone worth watching. And here's the part most people don't expect. The more focused you become, the less you want attention. You stop posting for validation. Stop explaining your plans. Stop seeking agreement. Because focus teaches you a brutal truth. Most opinions are distractions. Most advice is projection. Most feedback is fear disguised as concern. And once you see that, you become selective. Selective with your time. Selective with your energy. Selective with your words. That selectivity is what makes you dangerous. Because now you're not accessible to everyone. People will feel it. They won't be able to explain it. They won't be able to explain it. They'll just sense that you're no longer available to be pulled into nonsense. They'll test it. They'll drop comments meant to provoke. Questions meant to slow you down. Yeah, doubts meant to plant seeds. But seeds don't grow in disciplined soil. You've already decided where you're going. And once a man decides, nothing external can stop him. That's what separates the focused from the distracted. The distracted are negotiable. The focused are not. You stop negotiating with your goals. Stop compromising with comfort. Stop making excuses for stagnation. And when you stop negotiating with yourself, others lose leverage completely. They can't tempt you with shortcuts. They can't scare you with opinions. They can't distract you with drama. because your identity is no longer flexible. But you know who you are. You know what you're building, and you know what it costs. That certainty is rare, and rarity creates power. And rarity creates power. Most people never experience it. They live in reaction mode, but constantly responding to the loudest voice in the room. But focus removes you from the room entirely. You stop fighting for space. You stop competing for attention. You stop engaging in battles that don't matter. You don't need to win arguments when you're winning in life. And that's when people start watching you differently. They'll say you're lucky, that you had advantages, that things just worked out for you. They won't see the nights you chose discipline over comfort, the days you ignored distractions, the moments you walked away when reacting would have been easier. They never see the invisible work, but that's fine, because focus doesn't seek recognition. It seeks results, and results change everything. Results shut mouths. Results end debates. Results make tactics useless. Once your progress becomes undeniable, manipulation loses its grip. They can't guilt you when you're aligned. They can't shame you when you're disciplined. They can't distract you when you're committed. That's when their influence evaporates. You'll notice it in small ways first. The messages slow down. The opinions fade. And the attempts to pull you in stop landing. Not because they respect you, but because they can't reach you. And here's the part most people never prepare for. When tactics stop working, people reveal themselves. Some will admire you quietly. Some will resent you silently. Some will disappear completely. Let them. Focus doesn't cling. It doesn't chase. It doesn't beg. It keeps moving. And as you move, something strange happens. You start attracting different energy. People who value time. People who move with intention. People who don't need noise to feel important. That's how levels work. Not everyone upgrades. Not everyone follows. And that's okay. Because focus teaches you that growth is selective by nature. You don't carry everyone. You don't wait for everyone. You don't explain yourself to everyone. You protect your momentum. Momentum is fragile. Fragile. It dies when exposed to doubt. It dies when diluted by distraction. That's why focused people guard it aggressively. Not with words, with silence, with boundaries, with discipline. And those boundaries will offend people, because boundaries expose entitlement. Some will think they deserve access to you. Your time, your energy, your attention. But focus makes you ruthless with access. Not cruel, not arrogant. That ruthless, because you understand the cost of distraction now. You've felt it. The wasted years, the false starts, the energy drained by things that never mattered. You're done with that. So you move differently. You don't react to every message. You don't attend every invitation. You don't entertain every opinion. And that silence speaks louder than words ever could. They'll call it cold. They'll call it distance. They'll call it ego. Let them, because focus doesn't argue with misunderstanding. It keeps building. And one day, quietly, without announcement, you'll cross a line where their tactics don't just fail. They don't even register. You won't feel provoked. You won't feel tempted. You won't feel the need to respond. Because your mind will be elsewhere, locked onto the next objective, the next level, the next version of yourself. That's when freedom begins. Not freedom from responsibility. Freedom from manipulation. Freedom from needing approval. Freedom from reacting. Freedom from noise. And with that freedom comes clarity. You see people exactly as they are, not how they present themselves, not how they want to be seen. You see intent. You see who benefits from your distraction, who thrives on your reaction, who loses power when you focus. And once you see that, you don't get angry, you get disciplined. Because anger is still engagement. Silence is detachment, and detachment is the final form of control. That's when you realize something important. The goal was never to beat them. The goal was to outgrow the battlefield entirely. While they were busy perfecting tactics, you were perfecting yourself. You were perfecting yourself. And self-mastery beats every tactic ever created. Because tactics rely on weakness. Focus eliminates it. You become steady where others are emotional. Patient where others are impulsive. Consistent where others are reactive. And consistency always wins. Not fast, not flashy, relentlessly. So if you're wondering why everything feels different now, why people treat you differently, why silence feels heavier than noise, that's growth. That's focus. Solidifying. And the more you protect it, the more powerful it becomes. They'll still try from time to time. The old habits die hard, but each attempt will feel weaker. Each tactic more transparent. Each distraction easier to ignore. Until one day, without realizing it, you'll stop being a target entirely. Because they can't manipulate someone who's no longer available to manipulation. That's when you know you didn't just improve your focus. You changed your position, and from that position, everything else follows. Clarity, momentum, results, and no tactic survives that. That